happy Halloween, dear audience. Tonight we're going to be talking about the origin of the powerful villain known as Dracula within the context of the Castlevania game series. While there have been many origins given to Dracula over the course of the Castlevania game and multimedia franchise, so gather around and listen to the story of the man who became a great monster, the greatest ally of chaos, or the devil himself. In a distant era, before history was recorded, there was a rebellion in the heavens. The being whom would one day be known as Chaos rebelled against the heavens and the god who ruled over them. Defeated, he was cast out from his once great status as an angel of the Most High and became known as Chaos. Chaos remained bitter against the god who had exiled him and carried that hatred on to the children created by that god, or humanity. But this would not be the end of Chaos and his rebellious schemes. Chaos, in his hatred and his malice, and in his desire to subjugate God and his children, had a way to connect between his new immaterial realm and the material realm wherein humanity dwelled. The stones were connected to Chaos and the chaotic realm, and products of alchemy, created in the vain search to create the mythical Philosopher's Stone, an artifact to create eternal life, in which, in the attempts to create such an ideal artifact, created wicked, corrupt relics in the pursuit of eternal life through the stone. To seek eternal life was corrupt, and those seeking such would make monsters in the pursuit of such everlasting life. 3 different stones of 3 different colors are later seen on Chaos, representing these corrupt stones created through alchemy. Ebony for the darkness, crimson for the violence and death, and ochre for the greed, the gluttony, and the excesses of mortal desires. While the ochre stone is never found, and crimson stone, if made, was not around in ancient times, the ebony stone was made through alchemy in the distant past. It remained in a forest, corrupting the forest with a shroud of darkness. The ebony stone was claimed by Walter Bernhard, who gained seemingly endless youth from his possession of the stone. Walter not only gained this eternal youth, but also developed a new kind of appetite. Far from its ideal promise of eternal life, the ebony stone's immortality had a price. That price was blood. By consuming blood, the immortality of Walter Bernhard could be maintained, and thus Walter Bernhard became a vampire, a creature of chaos, and his disciple. An unknown period of time passed, over which Walter made his time, boring as it may become, luring various enemies and hunters out to attempt at destroying him, only for one after another to die in their attempts. He built up a great cursed castle, collecting many great monsters from all over the world to occupy his castle, and become part of the labyrinth of doom which would destroy the hunters, and allowing minions of chaos such as the Medusa, or even other subjugated vampires such as Joachim Armster, to have their part in also killing the hunters as servants of Walter himself. Others, such as the enslaved Rinaldo Gandolfi, came to serve roles of providing the visitors with weapons and a false sense of hope that they could try to win over the great vampire. After an unknown period of time, a crusader knight known as Matthias Kronkvist came to visit Walter. Matthias offered Walter a formidable opponent known as Leon Belmont, a fellow knight whom Matthias had known well in the crusade. Little did Walter know that Matthias had devised the perfect scheme of Walter's demise. The Crimson Stone could be made through a heart of evil, a heart of violence and bloodshed, and Walter's heart was the perfect candidate. Whilst Matthias did not try to kill Walter directly, his scheme was nonetheless to have his old friend Leon kill Walter. Matthias also planned to have Leon share his misery. He had lost his wife to illness while he had been away in the Crusades. In wrath, he cursed his god for the unfair loss of Elizabetha and swore he would find some way to become powerful, to defy death itself. He also mentioned Leon Belmont, knowing full well Leon would likely lose his fiancée, Sarah, should she be a bait for Leon. Soon enough, Leon came, and he was unfortunately too late. For as he battled Walter's forces, Sarah had the vampiric curse as part of Walter's gift and had to be killed. Through Sarah's death and the alchemy of Walter's servant Rinaldo, the whip which Leon Belmont had brought with him in his quest to rescue Sarah became consecrated as a sacred weapon, a bane to the undead and the demons, or the vampire killer, as we have come to know it, passed down from Belmont to Belmont. While the new weapon had been forged, the battle was not fully completed. Leon had yet to defeat Walter, which while he failed to save Sarah, he would defeat the monster and the accursed plague upon the land which Walter had become, for the good of humanity, for the good of God's children. And so Leon took to battle with Walter in his throne room, and with Walter's dying breath from the sacred vampire killer whip, Walter's curse was nearly destroyed, but Matthias was there, ready to take Walter's wicked heart. Matthias recreated the Crimson Stone, giving him power over death, and in his wickedness, offered Leon to share the corrupt, cursed, ageless existence with Leon, a final move to spite the God of Heaven and his children. Leon, however, refused to share this eternal life, but rather wished to destroy completely every last vestige of Walter's curse. Matthias, now a monster, ordered the entity of the Grim Reaper or Death to battle with Leon, covering his flight, and thus Matthias died, and Count Dracula was born. Becoming Count Dracula with the power of the Crimson Stone, Matthias gained the vampiric nature that Walter had possessed, although the Shroud of Darkness did not accompany him as it had for Walter with the Crimson Stone. Matthias lived in a state of relative obscurity, status unknown, until he settled as the reigning monarch in Wallachia, as Vladimir Basarab as his alias, a little more than 3 centuries after the events of 1094. He married a noblewoman named Lisa Fahrenheit and sired a son named Adrian Tepes. Unfortunately, Lisa's life was cut short by crucifixion, and Matthias could no longer maintain his wrath. He removed Lisa from the scaffolding, upon which she had been affixed with rope and nails. He cursed humanity with a great curse and adopted a new method of execution as retribution for that murder, the bodily impalement. Initially, his son took to his side, but when he saw the horrifying lengths his father was willing to go for his vengeance, and remembering what his crucified mother had told him, he reconsidered. When Alucard initially turned against his father, his attempt was unsuccessful, and he feared his father from his defeat. Trevor, Siffa, and Grant came along as a merry band to defeat Dracula's army, as well as Dracula himself. But what seemed to be Dracula's demise wasn't quite so. With the powers of the evil deity known as Chaos, Dracula could be made flesh once more, having more of the power of chaos than Walter before him ever did. The form of Dracula becoming once again made flesh in our world occurred beginning with the events involving Dracula's former commanders, Hector and Isaac Laforez, with their Devil Forge Master mastery. But even without the great power of the Devil Forge Master magic, gone from our world after Hector and Isaac's feud was concluded, Chaos could still return his powerful minion to our world once more. The realm of Chaos, or Hell as others know it, was separated by a gulf, which could grow thin as wickedness in the world grew. Even with the Devil Forge Masters and their dark magic gone from our world, the wickedness of humanity with greed, envy, and bloodshed could still be present, narrowing the gulf between the material world and the chaotic realm itself. On average, this time of great wickedness allowed Dracula to return once per century. But there were exceptions to which this gulf between the material and the immaterial was thinned out, allowing a return of Dracula and his demonic castle. And so, dear audience, this is the story, the tale of how Dracula came to be, the tale of how the great wheel of Dracula's war on humanity and all things holy was set into motion. And now I wish you well as you seek out more of the many stories which comprise the story of Dracula and his titular living castle, Castlevania. Until we meet again, farewell.